Do you know that 73% of customers agree that a bad restroom experience in a restaurant will impact their willingness to return? Torque Sustainable Hygiene Solutions improve operational efficiency for a better guest experience and better business.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Extra Serving, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I'm Sam Oches, editor-in-chief of NRN, joined by my esteemed colleague, executive editor, Alicia Kelso. Alicia, how are you?
I'm tired. I don't understand why holiday weekends are not restful.
Nope, because we pack so much into them thinking it's a holiday. Surely we must have fun. And as parents, fun requires work. So here we are. And at the added benefit, no, not benefit, the added whatever the opposite of a benefit is I then had to fly to another city, which is why I'm coming to you from this interestingly decorated hotel room you can see behind me if you are watching on YouTube. I'm in Orlando, and I'm not going to tell you why. It's for something big coming soon. But I will tell you, related, is that later this week, we have our next episode of Signature coming up, so you should stay tuned for that. I already spoiled that one, so I think I can go ahead and say again who that is. And that is Christine Barone, the CEO of Dutch Bros. I flew out to Phoenix to sit down with her in their brand new headquarters. So we have that interview coming on YouTube later this week, and we'll have the full conversation on my podcast takeaway later this month. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, you can guess and wonder what I'm doing in Orlando. Now, Alicia, I also want one more plug before we jump into the headlines. We have to also quickly talk about Create, which we have a lot of fun announcements coming in the next 2 weeks about Create. Create is our annual event for emerging restaurateurs happening this year, once again in Nashville. This year, that is going to happen October 15th through 17th. And this is, well, Alicia, wouldn't you say it's a lot of fun?
Totally. One of my favorite events. I just absolutely love it. I love the intimacy of it. The excitement. We intentionally focus on sort of emerging, smaller emerging brands, and just the excitement that they pour into every word of education, especially, and networking opportunities at this event is very unique. It's really special.
Yeah, I've always said that I liken this to the South by Southwest for the restaurant industry. And the reason why is because it is the attendee base is entrepreneurs. It is people who are in the trenches, really getting into the weeds on how to improve their businesses. We don't limit you. If you are a representative of a big brand, you are more than welcome to come to Create. Any operators get to come to Create. But we say that usually if you're under 200 units, if your company has less than 200 units, it's exactly the kind of event you're looking for. It's right in your wheelhouse because we do get very in the weeds. We want this to be an opportunity to learn, to grow, to be inspired, and to connect, right? Because at the end of the day, you're there with 400 of your peers, other leaders of emerging restaurant brands. So Create, that is happening in October 15th through 17th in Nashville. Please go book it now. If you go to create.nrn.com, you can register for this event. And by the way, I have to tell you all, and I'll spell out some of the details in some more information at nrn.com later this week. But we are going to pay you to come. Alicia, that's right. We're going to pay you to come. Well, not you, Alicia, but we're going to pay them to come. I already pay you to come to do these things. But here's how this works. If you go and register for Create, you have to put down you have to pay initially. It is just a deposit. If you come to Create, you get refunded the amount you've paid for. Listen, folks, if you have a no-show, you know how annoying that is. When you have a no-show, it's the same in the events business. So we just have to hold your spot. That's all. We will refund if you come. And then we're also hosting a one-on-one meeting session with vendors that is going to be extremely valuable for you to connect with potential new partners on your business. And if you sit for those meetings, we're going to give you a $100 gift card. So at the end of the day, we're paying you $100 to come to Create. That to me sounds like a win-win, Alicia.
It sounds like a win-win.
Yeah.
Anyway, you get to hang out with us, and we're a fun hang.
Most importantly, we're a fun hang, and we're all hanging out in downtown Nashville. We're going to hit Broadway. I will probably ride a mechanical bull. I will put on cowboy boots and a cowboy hat if it means you're all going to come again. Yes. Have I done these things already? Well, of course. I am a good hang. It's my obligation to do these things. But stay tuned to nrn.com for many more announcements. We have a very cool keynoter that we are mere days away, I think, from being able to announce and saying publicly who that is. But let me just tell you, you all know who this person is, and it'll be a lot of fun. And we've got some really killer operators on the docket as well. Create.nrn.com. Go register. My shameless plug is over. We can move on to the headlines. Let's start with the fact that since we last spoke, Alicia, the government has passed, the House has passed the Big Beautiful Bill, which of course is the Trump administration's massive bill trying to accomplish a lot of Trump's campaign promises. And it squeaked by in the Senate. And by squeaked by, I mean, I believe Vice President Vance had to be the tiebreaker. And it also squeaked by in the House. Of course, lots of disagreements on it. However, it is passed. The important thing to us, of course, because we're not a politics podcast, but a restaurant podcast, is what does it mean for the restaurant industry, Alicia?
That's a good question. So, for something this big and really holistic and complex, we look to what restaurant trade organizations have to say about this, because they're the sort of the boots on the ground, for the actual business impact of this. And, I can tell you that both the National Restaurant Association and the International Franchise Association applauded the passage of this bill for various reasons. And Sean Kennedy, who's the executive vice president at the National Restaurant Association, essentially said that this bill includes, quote, one of the most important pro-growth tax policies that restaurant operators need to continue to power the national economy. And so, again, you get into the weeds of this, and those tax policies include, the pass-through entities, the calculation of business interest expense, which the IFA has estimated that will enable franchise businesses to deduct billions of dollars in interest, every year. The deductions of up to 20% of income generated by businesses coming through those pass-through entities, things that are far more too complex for me to really fully understand. The big headline, of course, from this bill that we've been parsing through for weeks since it was actually proposed was, of course, the no tax on tips, because that has probably the biggest implications in this industry. And interestingly, the National Restaurant Association applauded that as well. However, the Independent Restaurant Coalition, which represents smaller, sort of mom and pops, had a little bit of trepidation about this, expressing concern that the limit was $25,000 on this no tax on tips, expressing concern that consumers could pull back on their tipping because now they don't have to, pay on those taxes, and mostly expressing concern that back of house and front of house disparities will really sharpen, because this will impact pretty much front of house employees only. So interesting sort of dynamic between, the trade organizations that sort of represent the bigger chains and those that represent the smaller concepts. And, I don't have an opinion either way. I just know that there's a dynamic conversation happening about some of the fine print, particularly as it applies to that no tax on tips provision. The interesting difference in conversation between the National Restaurant Association and the Independent Restaurant Coalition. Along the lines of the IRC, or, the sort of a left-leaning activist group, One Fair Wage, expressing concern that 2/3 of tipped workers won't benefit from the tax break because they earn too little to begin with. I can tell you the one thing that kind of I liked mostly about this bill was the provision that was designed to increase child care, including an increase to the child tax credit, and the creation of savings accounts, for newborns. I think affordable child care, as we have talked about extensively here and elsewhere is, a huge need for this industry, one that we need to explore in earnest on how we can keep our workforce intact, that we obviously have historically high turnover levels. We have broken rungs all over the place that are, prohibiting women in particular, from, advancing in their career in this industry. And a lot of that comes back to accessibility and affordability of childcare. So that's the one thing that I think is kind of great about this bill here.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, can't grandfather in, those of us who had kids in the last 2 years into that savings account, I mean, come on. Oh, well, my 3 kids born under 3 different presidents. True story. But there will not be a 4th under Trump V2. So, but yeah, to your point, Alicia, too, that you're right. I mean, anything to support childcare, you and I both know as working parents that it is, and I can't even put myself in this conversation because I have a saint for a wife who does most of the childcare and is not working. And so she's incredible. But we have the ability to do that. Restaurant employees, the vast majority of restaurant employees, do not have the ability to take time off of work to provide for their kids. They need childcare. And you and I both know how doggone expensive everything is around childcare. So yes, there is a positive. Now, I would also remind there are a lot of ways in which this big, beautiful bill cuts entitlement programs for many people who are employed by your restaurants, right? So, Medicaid and many other programs are losing funding, and this can have a direct impact on your employees. So what I would recommend in that regard is taking a look at how your employees might be directly impacted just outside of being employed by your restaurant, because the tip thing, that's something obviously you need to be paying attention to and figure out how it's going to impact them. But figure out how it's going to impact them beyond your restaurant, because you may need to beef up your benefits program, your benefits offerings to support your employees if they're losing access to certain programs. SNAP was another one that's losing funding. And unfortunately, there may be some restaurant employees, lots of restaurant employees, that are reliant on that program to feed their families. So look into that, figure out ways you can, it doesn't have to be necessarily paying them more, although that wouldn't hurt, but how can you build out a comprehensive benefits plan to take care of your employees? The last thing too is, of course, this bill funds, it gives a lot more funds to ICE. We talked about this last week, how that obviously has a big impact on the restaurant industry today, billions and billions and billions going to ICE to conduct immigration raids, among other things, and that could have an impact on you, and certainly could have an impact on your employees. So please just pay attention to what's in this bill and how you can, at the end of the day, politics aside, take care of your people. Just take care of your people. Figure out how they're being impacted by this bill, negatively or positively, and find ways to support them, because there are many examples, and I don't need to tell you who they are, but you go look around the restaurant industry, many of examples of restaurant companies taking care of their employees and directly benefiting from it from a business perspective. It's good business. There's a return on that investment. So I would suggest go pay attention to that. All right, let's move on to news about new restaurant products, including some interesting news from some companies that are going the route of exclusive partnerships. Let's start there because there was a couple of them last week. We had Potbelly, which was announcing a new potato chip flavor, as I recall. And we also had Buffalo Wild Wings, which has a new beer and a new sauce in partnership with Heinz. These are exclusive products that are going to be offered only at these restaurant companies, although B-Dubs, I believe that's for a limited time only. Alicia, tell me more about these partnerships and these new menu items coming out through these partnerships.
Yeah, I just think this is a really fun trend. I mean, I think we talked about this here, Sam, if I recall, but, let's go back 20 years. Taco Bell had an exclusive drink partnership with Mountain Dew for their Baja Blast, and that has taken on an extreme life of its own. There's an alcoholic version of it now, like retail. And we've seen this sort of exclusive to XYZ in product launches really pick up in the past year, probably 2 years, as LTOs in general have picked up. Along those lines, essentially menus are just simply getting more creative because we still have muted traffic in this industry. So what is going to excite customers to come in and trial? Well, a lot of that can come from exclusive products. And, we saw this uptick in beverages where, Little Caesars and Papa John's and Taco Bell has a new midnight Baja Blast expected to come later this year. We're starting to see that at KFC more on the beverage side where, their beverage partners, from Coca-Cola to Pepsi and Dr. Pepper are creating these new beverages, exclusively for specific brands. And it's a great way to co-market. I think, like I said, I think it's worth the trial. I want to go check out that new mango Mountain Dew drink at Little Caesars. I want to go check out this Mountain Dew Radler. Of course I do, because it's got beer in it, equal parts soda and beer, made exclusively for B-dubs. It sounds great. Now we're starting to get, and obviously we've talked about beverages just being completely in high demand, in a way that I never could have predicted 15 years ago when we started this industry. Now, we're starting to get into exclusive menu items beyond the beverage line in the menu, as evidenced by this partnership with Buffalo Wild Wings and Heinz. And they have an exclusive mustard, for example. As you mentioned, Potbelly has been a partner of Zapp's chips, and they've got a new exclusive chips made in partnership with that. I think that's a 15-year partnership that they've had. So I think as we get into this bigger churn of creative menu launches, this is going to be a bigger part of the conversation. It's like last year when we were talking about the giant Cheez-It Crunchwrap at Taco Bell. I mean, we're just going to see more of these partnerships, between restaurants and their partners, and many of which are CPG companies as well. A lot of them are going to be exclusive because it's going to drive that trial that has been relatively elusive, for the past several years. So I think it's cool and fun, and we're talking about it.
Yeah, the Heinz thing in particular, of course, we've talked about beverage ad nauseum. I mean, it's just been, we all know the excitement in beverage, but as we've talked about a little bit less, it is the sauce revolution happening right now, right? And so to think about how a company like Heinz then partners with B-dubs. Now, again, that's not an exclusive to B-dubs, but they are introducing it. It's going to be on the menu at B-dubs for a limited time before rolling out nationwide in retail. But you think about a partner like a Heinz, right? A Kraft Heinz, a Coca-Cola. These are companies with vast resources, vast R&D resources, vast amounts of data into what customers want out of these products, right? And so if I'm a restaurant and I have a partnership with a vendor like a Kraft Heinz or a Coca-Cola, and I want to do sauce innovation or beverage innovation, hello. I mean, it is, and that's the beauty of something like Taco Bell with Baja Blast. You have a partner in PepsiCo and Mountain Dew that can, develop this flavor with you, and you both benefit on putting that on the menu. Of course, Coca-Cola with the Freestyle has had a lot more innovation going on and has started to partner with Wendy's, Whataburger. The ability to just bring the strengths of both organizations to co-market, to your point, Alicia, it makes too much sense. But I really do love how that's branching out into sauces. We saw at the restaurant show this year, Kraft Heinz had a vending machine, or basically a Freestyle, but for sauce. Remix. Yeah. There we go. And, you're going to have that opportunity to have signature sauce blends at your restaurant using this machine. Of course, customers can kind of do a DIY approach to it too. But there's nothing not to love about this, because you get that marketing heft of a partner, in these cases, massive multinational companies. But you also get a sense of fun and exclusivity, and people, you have to go to the restaurant to get this product. It makes a lot of sense from a marketing perspective. It makes a lot of sense from a menu perspective. And these are the exact kinds of things, as we'll talk about in a little bit, consumers are pulling back on spending. And these are the exact kinds of things that are going to get them to come in your doors. A recent one for me, Alicia, the new ranch at Chipotle, because you know how much I love ranch. I love it. It's in my DNA. All know.
We all know this by now.
I mean, I expect better of you in your ranch endeavors because you are a fellow Ohioan born, but it's okay. I will. You like it more than I think some of our colleagues, so I'll take that. But I sought out the ranch at Chipotle, the new adobo ranch, because that just checks too many of my boxes right there. and it was very good, and I enjoyed it, and I'll probably go back. But the point is like, listen, we get Chipotle every now and then, like anybody else. But that was an occasion to go get Chipotle. I didn't need to wait for Taco Tuesday. I just wanted to go get Chipotle and try that ranch. And this is what's happening here. You're giving them reason to come in the doors. Now we got to talk about McDonald's, because McDonald's continues to have menu news, new menu items. Most recently, the double burger, and the blueberry pie, the spicy McMuffin. Here are some new items rolling out to get your attention and to get you to come into McDonald's. By the way, we're also, T-minus 3 days till snack wraps? Am I saying that right? Today's the 7th, and that's going to be
10th. Yep.
So
That's
lots
coming.
of menu news at McDonald's, pivoting slightly, but how do these new products, do you think, Alicia, kind of fit into this narrative of bringing that excitement to the customer, getting them to come back?
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's an ongoing conversation. I want to zoom in quick on sauce, because you intentionally went to Chipotle to try the sauce, and Technomic data shows that over 30% of customers go to a restaurant specifically for a sauce. So all these conversations that we have about beverages and exclusive beverages and drinks, sauce belongs in that conversation as well. And I just think it's a really a fun conversation, the ability to add new news without a lot of operational complexity and not a lot of cost. And that is the case with McDonald's Spicy McMuffin. And so they're just, they're adding a sauce to their signature McMuffin, not coincidentally, during the 50th anniversary of the Egg McMuffin. And they've got, 3 options: the sausage, the spicy sausage McMuffin with egg. And, and so it's new news, and it's easy new news. And so there's a lot of different components to this conversation, where McDonald's is also trying to shift its trend right now. We have experienced 2 very rare consecutive quarters in a row of same-store sales declines at McDonald's. And so we're seeing a lot of new product news as an attempt to try and reverse those trends. And last quarter, that erosion in sales and traffic extended beyond its over-indexed lower income consumers into middle class. And so it's a little bit of a concerning trend, for the Golden Arches. And I do think that's why we're seeing an uptick in menu launches. And notably, last quarter, there was a mention that breakfast sales in particular were soft. And that's a concern, because breakfast is McDonald's most profitable day part. And so why not zhuzh up the Egg McMuffin? Hey, with the sauce, like I said, easy operationally. We also have, like you mentioned, the double burger was really interesting because it was a regional offering in just a couple of pockets. I think Chicago was one. And they just brought it nationwide. Really kind of surprising, like, oh, there's a new burger on McDonald's menu. It's premium. And so, this is a good approach for McDonald's to put out a premium burger while it's simultaneously aggressively continuing to promote its McValue platform that it launched in January, that hasn't yet shown a lot of needle movement on sales and traffic. And so to protect margins, what do? We go for the barbell menu. It's becoming way more common, as discussed with Technomics managing principal at the National Restaurant Association show, Joe Pollack, mentioned that barbell menus are a critical strategy right now because we need to get consumers in the door, and value is still very much a heavy piece of that conversation. But ideally, if we get them in the door, maybe they'll be like, oh, you know what? That double burger looks pretty good.
Yep. And
so it's a way for McDonald's to protect those margins while it again continues to promote McValue very heavily and evolve that McValue platform. So, and then finally that blueberry pie, I think they launch a new pie once or twice every year, but I think we're going to start seeing more creativity in the space because McDonald's created 3 category teams, one focused on beef, one focused on chicken, and then a third focused on beverage/dessert. And so once we start seeing these teams work come to fruition, we'll start to see, more exciting menu product news from these category teams, especially on the beverage and dessert side. Why not? It's a special intent. It's incremental. They got
Yep.
the ability to do it.
We see it revving up. We see these task forces, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
We see them coming to fruition, and these ideas coming to market. Now, a couple of things. First off, good timing for McDonald's. Egg prices seem to be coming down. We won't have a lot of time to get into it, but just to mention it quickly, Denny's and White Waffle House both announced that they would be dropping their egg surcharges. So perhaps some more business back into, more life, more momentum back into the morning day part, and to the family dining industry as well, with egg prices coming back down to earth. But good timing for McDonald's to be able to say, hey, look at some Egg McMuffin value we've got here. And oh, by the way, we have this excitement in a sauce. And the other thing I wanted to say is, holy cow, 50 years it took them to put a sauce on that dang thing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I bring something like that home and I just put some hot sauce on it myself. Or also, I just make these things at home because I have the ability to give it that flavor. But it is a game changer. I might have a thing with sauces, Alicia. I don't know. I think we're learning together that I just have a weird thing with sauce. But it is to your point, a very easy, affordable way to drive excitement and momentum. Now, I'm very curious to see with the double burger, to your point about the barbell, we've seen this before, Alicia. Remember the Angus burgers of 12, 13 years ago? We saw McDonald's try this out in the last economic, downturn with the recession. Angus burgers, went away after a little bit. We see McDonald's flirt with that premium side of the barbell and try some things, but consumers have changed their tastes immensely since then. So who knows? And the double burger might be, I don't know the cost, the breakdown of the cost, but maybe it's just a more cost efficient new menu item than the Angus burger, which of course was a much more premium product that they were putting on that burger.
Yeah, it is. And we're also anticipating the Big Arch to come. So they've started rolling out the Big Arch in several international markets with an intention of making that a global product. So I don't know when that's going to come to the US, but it's going to. And so it'll be interesting to see how that menu space on the premium side is adjusted for the Big Arch if and when that does come. And again, to your point, we've got wraps coming this week. So lots of reasons to visit McDonald's right now.
Yeah, the next quarterly earnings report will be fascinating on McDonald's front, just to see, and it might take a quarter or two for this to play out, but will be fascinating to see some results from all of this and what should come of it. Now, a downside of a lot of things, or the bad news is here, some data is showing that consumers are actively pulling back on their restaurant spending. This is kind of one of those, well, of course, we've been talking about this forever, but we've got some fresh data. Pop Menu has data, Fiserv has data showing this pullback on consumer spend. Alicia, what to make of this new data that says consumers are pulling back?
This new data is the same data that we've been, it's new data showing a continuation of what we've been reporting that was largely reflected in Q1 earnings, which were not, not great. And so we still see muted traffic. We still see some concerning trends. We're seeing this across the aisle at our retail, in the retail sector as well, where there's a significant pullback. Consumers are showing that they are pulling in their discretionary spending, and they did so again in June. And they're diverting those funds more toward essentials. I think there's still a major concern on some of the macro factors that are pushing employment remains steady, wages remain steady. So there's good news there. But there's still just a lot of uncertainties that continue in terms of inflation. The tariff policy is still a little murky. Ideally, we'll find a little bit more out about that this week. But if you look at the CPI, which June CPI is going to come out next week, unfortunately, we don't have that this week. Menu prices in particular are still far outpacing general inflation and far outpacing grocery inflation. And that is the restaurant industry's shooting itself in the foot, right? If we have a traffic erosion problem because consumers are finding a higher value at the grocery store and have been for 2 years in a row. When menu prices are above 4% still, and the inflation is under 3, general inflation is under 3, consumers are going to divert more of their dollars elsewhere. It's just a law of economics. So the concerning thing is that we have surveys with tens of thousands of people saying that they're going to continue to pull back on restaurant spending, including through the summer. And, I will see this information will become far more clearer, at the end of this month when Q2 calls start to pick up. Because even if we didn't see the hard numbers from Q2, most executives will give us a glimpse into the beginning of Q3 as well. So I think, again, we'll start to understand this a little bit more once we get some of those 40-some, public calls and what consumers are doing.
Now, to unpack the data a little bit here, though, too, Alicia, a couple bright spots. Am I right to say that coffee and fine dining were a couple of categories that showed a little bit more of a bright spot as far as traffic? But the other thing is that experiential brands in general seem to be doing better. And experiential, by the way, could mean the fine dining hospitality. If experiential could mean, I don't know, maybe it means entertainment. But in general, just seems like customers they don't just want that quick, easy meal anymore. They want that special something on top of it, that experience that is unique to most restaurants, right?
No question. And that we have additional data from Yelp illustrating exactly, medieval times had like a triple-digit uptick in searches. It's so funny.
That was me, Alicia, because I'm here in Orlando. I just wanted to...
But to your point, it's no longer, they want bang for their buck. And, they have inflation across the board, not just on menus. Inflation across the board remains high. Cost of living remains high. And so consumers, they're pulling back on their discretionary spending, but they still want the experience, to your point. It's not so much entertainment as it is, things that they know they're going to get great service. Chili's is a great example here. They put a lot of time in bolstering their operations. Texas Roadhouse, also strong, consistently strong, and they overstaff. Just so customers will get that bang for their buck. It's not just medieval times, but it's, the companies that are putting their time and resources into making sure the experience is worth the cost of those higher menu prices, whether that's, customer service, whether that's making sure that orders are accurate, speedy, all of that. It's way more holistic now than it was even just 5 years ago. 5 years ago, the definition of value is super holistic now. And if you don't get it right, and if your servers don't get it right, your front line doesn't get the order right, then they're just not going to come back because they don't have that money to spend anymore.
Which, going back to the earlier part of this conversation, taking care of your employees has a direct return on investment. And that can be a part of it. That hospitality you get from happy employees can be that experiential component that customers are looking for today. And it can protect you from some of the fallout of the economic turbulence, that people seek you out because they know they're going to get a great hospitable experience. But you cannot accomplish that without happy employees. So figure out how to make your employees happy.
And I think it's important to jump off of that point, if I can, Sam. If you look at the brands that are performing the strongest, and this is a point that needs to be hit home and hit home often. If you look at the brands that are performing the strongest across segments, they're not the brands that are aggressively pushing value deals now. They are, the Texas Roadhouses and the Cavas, and and I think it's really, and that's a really interesting. Yes, Chili has a 3 for me, So there is, some argument against that, but Chili's is also, like I said, investing a lot in their operations and their staffing, so that people come in the door, they upgrade to a premium. But across the board, the chains that are doing the best are the ones that do not have the aggressive value at play. And I just think that's a really interesting case study right now.
Yes, very fascinating to consider. All right, Alicia, that's all we have for this week. However, we are going to roll now into an interview that our colleague, senior editor Joanna Fantozzi, did at the recent National Restaurant Association show in Chicago with Jamie Richardson of White Castle. So enjoy that. Alicia, talk to you next week.
Do you know that 73% of customers agree that a bad restroom experience in a restaurant will impact their willingness to return? Torque's sustainable hygiene solutions improve operational efficiency for a better guest experience and better business.
All right. I am Joanna Fantozzi with Nation's Restaurant News. I'm here with Jamie Richardson of White Castle. Thanks for being here.
It is awesome to be here. There's a lot of energy, and just happy to be here in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, we were just talking about this before, but I love the White Castle merch. And that's I'm guessing that's in reference to the late night.
It is, because something really special happens when the sun goes down. White Castle becomes Night Castle. So I'm wearing my Night Castle. Next year it will be glow in the dark. We're constantly making it better. And it even has a very special slider pocket in the back, so I can keep my three-dimensional coupons ready to rock if it's one whole slider.
I love that. I feel like the Night Castle, all that promotion has been really great for you guys. How has Night Castle been so far?
It's been amazing. I think the fact that we've been open 24 hours since the 1920s helps a lot, and just having the chance to remind people that. And our teams are amazing. So we were certified literally for the fifth year in a row as a great place to work, and that's a 24-hour operation. So it says something about those individuals who are pilots of the airways for that late night crave, and consumers have really responded positively, so we're having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things in the news cycle lately is that you just announced the Craver Hall of Fame, this year's inductees, right?
We did. So many are called and few are chosen. We have put the study to this. It's actually easier to get into Harvard than it is the Cravers Hall of Fame.
I love that. Do I need to submit my SAT scores?
No, not anything even that formal. Just a really great story and a lifetime of devotion to satisfying your cravings at the castle. But we just inducted this incredible class. They flew in from all over the country. They entered as strangers. They left as best of friends. And we have a big official induction ceremony with all of our home office team members there. And each of these inductees gets up on stage and shares why they love White Castle and what we've had the chance to mean to them in their lives. So it's really cool.
Could you tell me a little bit about some of the people that were inducted this year?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Michael Newman, a great student. He was at Rutgers, and his parents bought him a Crave case after they'd gone to a concert, and he was on the sustainability curve ahead of the rest of the world because he transformed that Crave case into his college luggage backpack and everything else. He still has it.
That's amazing.
It's got just a hint of onion around it. There's a group from Minneapolis that has the White Castle Derby every year. They've been doing this for 58 years. They're 4 generations strong. They gather together the Saturday before Thanksgiving and crave on some castles, and it was just so much fun to have them all there together.
Yeah, absolutely. And so besides all that, what is new? What's going on with White Castle?
We've got a lot going on. So a big focus on late night, as we were referencing in terms of Night Castle. I think the other thing is around menu. I think all of us right now are trying to make sure we've got hot, tasty, and affordable food. And so we have a theory that a lot of consumers out there are making leftovers last longer. They're a little concerned about what might come next. And our thought is, how can we be there for them? So we just came out with a package deal we haven't done since literally 2012, 6 sliders for $4. And there's nothing like that original classic. And people are really responding in droves. So it's fun to see that.
Yeah, it is amazing. I feel like a lot of brands are really thinking a lot more about value these days because customers' wallets really are shrinking. And so it's really hard to, I guess, get that wallet share when it's kind of shrinking like that.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's always going to be about how great is the food and what was that experience like. And we know that's the base of all crave physics, as we would call it. But being able to get attention is important too. And so we got that. We got 12 chicken rings for $3.99, and you can get them with cheddar blast too. So, which is a brand new flavor. So we found that our Gen Z consumers really love variety, and they love to lean into that. So that keeps it popping for us, and keeps the drive-thrus busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like there is one strategy that a lot of operators are taking, which is kind of the deals and promotions, as people are kind of, like they're not spending as much on restaurants. But the other way of getting people's attention is through menu innovation. So how are you guys thinking about menu innovation this year?
Similarly to how we're thinking about value, asking great questions of our consumers, listening and telling to what they tell us, and then responding to that. And so for us, our kitchens are pretty simple. We're really, really, really great at making sliders and tasty sides and all kinds of other sandwiches. So our menu innovation has looked at our core platforms in terms of how do we find things that give it just a little bit of a twist, just a little bit of a smile. And so that's been a big part of the fun. And I'm going to break news right now and share that we are going to introduce a brand new, crispier and bigger chicken sandwich.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Now I'm mad that I don't have my notebook with me. Tell me about this.
Coming soon to a castle near you on June 16th. We're going to have a new chicken sandwich, and it's tastier, cravier, crispier, and we think it's time. So we know that 100% beef slider is the center of plate for a lot of our consumers, because we have a really cool, we think it's our secret superpower. The size of our sandwiches, the size of our sides are smaller. So our sides are nibblers. You can share them. You can have one for yourself or whatever it might be. Same with the sandwiches. So being able to get 2 cheese sliders with 2 chicken sandwiches is a perfect way to complement your lunch or dinner.
Now, you guys have had chicken sandwiches before?
We have, yeah.
Okay, so how's this one different?
This one's, we've done scientific testing to show that it's crispier, and we think that's an improvement. It's got a buttermilk coating, and here's truly, all cliches intended, the secret sauce, honeycomb mustard. And we did extensive testing.
What's honeycomb mustard?
It is delicious. It is all the best that you can imagine when you think of those words together. So it's got this more than a hint of honey, and the deliciousness of the mustard flavor coming through. And so we drizzle that all over the sandwich, and it's on our bakery fresh bun that we make in our own bakeries, and it's out of this world. So we're super excited about it and eager to have it out in the restaurants really soon.
I'm a really big honey mustard fan on chicken in general, like crispy chicken. I feel like a lot of chicken sandwiches lean into aioli. So it's interesting that you kind of like pivoted in that different direction.
Yeah, we think, we went all different directions too as we were exploring what do consumers want next. And overwhelmingly, they told us this honeycomb mustard is a hit. And so we played that up and the communication, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it. And so it's got all the great flavors you'd expect from the crave-worthy castle, and coming soon to a castle near you.
Oh, very exciting. Are there any toppings to it, like any pickles or onions or anything?
You can get lettuce and tomato if you like. That's the deluxe. Option. So, but we think that's going to be part of the fun too. So,
yeah.
So we're expecting a lot of people to give it a try and come on back for more.
Restart those chicken sandwich wars, though, of a few years ago.
Well, we are small and mighty, so, but yeah, we can keep it going, and we think it's time to get out there with a new chicken sandwich. And we'll still have our chicken ring sandwich, which is delicious as well. So there's something about the combination of when you can hit it with a zest of jalapeno cheese on it, or go for smoky cheddar or whatever it might be. So we believe that keeping it small is great. Giving people the chance to customize and have some variety built into the menu is really important as well.
Yeah. Well, so you say that the White Castle superpower is the kind of like being small and nimble in terms of the menu size, or rather the menu item size. But I also feel like it's the brand itself, because
Thank you.
Because I feel like you kind of come across still as that like scrappy younger brand, even though you're the oldest fast food chain in America. How do you kind of like keep that cross between a legacy brand and a classic brand versus kind of that still exciting and emerging?
I think we're really fortunate. We're still family owned after 104 years, and our leader, our slider queen, and that's the title she prefers versus CEO.
Yes.
And if we call her CEO, she says call her craving excellence optimizer. So I think it's about being real and being connected and not taking ourselves too seriously, and being willing to learn as we go along. We have, and this is no knock against our competitors because we have great respect for them. We don't have the same constraints that Wall Street analyzed firm does. We can make decisions that might pay out in 14 months or 8 months. We don't have to worry about period financial close in that regard and what the analysts might say. So, and I think hopefully a hint of irreverence, not thinking, I mean, at the end of the day, we get to sell 200 square sliders that people love and enjoy and have a crave quotient for. So that part of keeping it fun, and people who care and love the business and work together really nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great that you mentioned because when Lisa Ingram was on our power list, I believe it was last year.
Yes, that's right.
She referred to herself as Slider Queen, and we had that in the text.
She has different shirts for each day of the week that say Slider Queen. So that's that's the best merch going. So, but those are limited editions. You can't get those on our merch site, the House of Crave.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah. And it really has become kind of this cult classic brand, which is interesting because I feel like that's hard to do. There are a few quick service brands out there that kind of created this cult status. And so I feel like that happens. It has to happen naturally. You can't be like, how do you do that? But I guess, how do you think White Castle has kind of achieved that cult classic status?
I think we're really fortunate. I think constancy of purpose. I think having a heart for hospitality. And candidly, I think opening ourselves up to be a part of people's memories versus just a caloric provider. We go beyond utility. Our vision is feed the souls of craver generations everywhere. And we live by it. Our mission is to create memorable moments every day. Our general managers, on average, each has been with White Castle 21 years. So he or she, they have the keys of the castle. And yeah, we're all company-owned operation. We don't have franchises. But their passion, their devotion as individuals shapes the tone for all of their team members. And they get to bring it to life for their communities. So that part of it to us has been a really powerful part of, and how you become a cult or not, I don't think you can put that on a strategy map and just say, oh, next week we'll be a cult brand. I think it's something that we just stumbled into, and we're fortunate, and we want to keep nourishing it.
Yeah, it definitely does have to do something with creating those kind of core memories, I think, also because I grew up on Long Island in the 90s, and I feel like White Castle was just like a big part of the culture. And it was just, you would it was an exciting day of the week or month or whatever when mom would be like, oh, that's your treat is White Castle burgers, and sometimes it would come from White Castle, sometimes it would come from the freezer aisle,
right?
But it was always just kind of like a fun, oh yay, treat, and it was like a big part of my childhood.
And I'm glad you mentioned the freezer aisle because that part of our business continues to grow, and we really believe our focus is on how do we provide restaurant quality at home. And so whether you crave the convenience of the late night drive-through at 3 a.m. or just want to wander down to your kitchen and pop some in the microwave, we've got you covered, and that's part of the fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, great. I think that's a good note to end on. Thanks so much, Jamie.
You bet. Crave on, my friend. Always good to see you.
Do you know that 73% of customers agree that a bad restroom experience in a restaurant will impact their willingness to return? Torque's sustainable hygiene solutions improve operational efficiency for a better guest experience and better business.